YouTube comments from a video titled, Watch, the most compelling argument against tech in schools, Sophie Winkleman. Part 13.
At Mongalicious wrote,
10 o'clock, the comment about Sweden is a lie. I'm in Sweden and my daughter gets at least 6 hours of screen time at school. I am so angry because I see that screens have a bad effect on her mind. At home, she gets about 2 hours/week only at weekends watching a movie or playing some Minecraft.
At Dave Bart 1961 wrote,
I agree 100% with everything you have said, but you are wasting your time. We are in Australia and our grandkids have iPads at the age of 1. We will have a whole generation of God knows what until your ideas are finally recognized.
At That Awesome Guy Gaming wrote,
She's acting like everywhere is choosing tech purely because it's better when it's actually because it's cheaper and more convenient. People were saying the same negative things about tech 10, 15, 20 years ago. They compare a well-funded, professional class with no tech to the bottom of the barrel school that tries to use tech in place of real teachers. Then complain that kids spend all their time inside instead of playing outside, forgetting that parents by luck can't let their kid run off to the local playground without parental supervision. Good schools still do things right where bad schools now have no discipline to replace proper instruction, and so they do the easiest thing and throw screens at the problem. Good parents still do all they can to give their child meaningful experiences and connections whilst busy, and bad parents can't send them alone outside or leave them at home, so they throw screens at them to keep them busy.
At Zdora Vijlust wrote,
We need to encourage actions which inspire communication, but the roots of this crisis is in the community disintegration. When we lived in the natural economies, people were united by the need of helping to provide food and shelter to their families. Now the gap between rich and poor is so big, and the trust between people is so little, and the food is so unhealthy and unnatural, that nothing will make the situation better unless we return to a more natural, self-sufficient and close to a nature lifestyle. We don't need to refuse the technology and stuff, but we need a long breather and rehabilitation before we can learn to not overuse them.
At Damien Cusinal wrote,
Read Alice in Wonderland to children, then play Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit. If you do not start crying, then I do not think you understand what great literature is. The 808 Poe in T8 section of the Municipal Library hold the bastions of our civilization.
At Davidagiel 81 wrote,
The same argument about screens can and were made against books. We have seen the impact of TV and advertising in the 80s with Alaskan tribes and Fijian women. The younger generation of Alaskan tribes, after receiving TV and advertising for the first time in the 80s, had forgotten all of their ancestors' knowledge. They replaced their native coffee, handmade shoes, and hunting techniques with instant coffee, Nikes, and buying food. Fijian women never had a self-conscious complex about their big bone bodies until mass advertising invaded their country, full of sexy thin models as the desired female. The device is not the issue. Understanding the mind and how it operates is what is important. Don't fear. Understand. If you understand the mind, nothing can keep you down, no matter the medium.
Kelly Pashade wrote,
Well, I hope these ideas and crucial loses as AI is pushed like a drug Ritalin into the classroom and into our students' minds are shown to the Department of Education, as it is an emergency and needs a speedy halt. I highest if cuz want to opt out it will be homeschool, while public school will have what they consider is the more beneficial. I can see the classroom togetherness group feeling the new technique alienates from one another. Will the teacher be demoted as the disciplinary for disruption in the classroom? Because that would only be a matter of time. If a kid needs help, he just flips on a light on his pad, teacher sees and come to his aid. That's stupid. So the AI is going to be a robotic what? Kids aren't going to just sit in a classroom all day being told what to do by a 10-inch iPad.
At Yakovim 7747 wrote,
These data are terrifying. In the observant Jewish society, called Orthodox, our children usually do not have smartphones at all. Yes, they have old-fashioned flip phones. I am grateful for this since our children can't argue that all kids have one. Instead, there are books, the piano, the guitar, and the basketball hoop on the garage.
At Andy 31793 wrote,
They actually have the audacity to say that the Bling Ring was the first coordinated crime ring using social media and the internet. I mean, a group of FBI agents were caught in Colombia recently having regular sex hookups with underage prostitutes. I am sure an investigation of Afghanistan would reveal similar results. Are we to believe this is a new thing and the internet is not being used to arrange this?
At Andy 31793 wrote,
I have a hypothesis that this started with the music industry. MySpace is evidence of this, but I believe that it goes much deeper than just a web page. They use data from that page to power the industry for creating all manner of devices through collaboration with a wide variety of industries. This would be top secret research. As a result, there would literally be a group, not a band per se, but more like a cult that is using these devices to control the future. To test this, I have created lists of what would happen if X, Y, Z. I also created lists that would provide indication if I happened to be wrong, and this was merely a hallucination. Literally, powering their devices with the blood and data of the innocent.
At Tarek Latif 1505 wrote,
What about the black strollers, not bright prams kids used to be in? A kid has to sit in a black pram. Kids needs colorful prams and clothes. They thrive on a world of color.
At Tarek Latif 1505 wrote,
What about preschools that have terrible playgrounds for poor UK schools? Such as cheap plastic chairs for kids to sit outside and scroll their phones, I presume. Rubber swings, low-amp heaters in schools bad for children's brains also. Whereas in Europe, I noticed when on Hall, kids' playgrounds have wooden swings, wooden slide, colorful toys and playground. Instead of hard concrete ground, sandy ground. How beautiful! Kids need bright colors, natural wooden swings, in natural surroundings.
A Small Faucet wrote,
I am a sub-teacher in my town. I sent this video to over 200 staff hoping they would watch and feel the same way it made me feel. I was reprimanded by HR and told not to do it again.
A Timipolis wrote,
Kids aren't affected by tech in schools. That's an argument from lazy parents that let their children be affected by the tech at home, as those same parents are already screen junkies staring bland at their phones. Stop trying to shift the blamed webs and take your responsibility.
At Michael Mickelk 1748 wrote,
My daughter asked to go to a nearby park to meet her school friends who were already there. She would go ahead and Elle would catch up with our other two younger kids. When Elle arrived, my daughter and her friends were sitting on the playground equipment staring at their phones. It seemed such a shame they were not interacting and playing on the purpose-made playground equipment. I had to say something. Why not leave your phones at home and play with each other?
At Julian Thomas C4Z wrote,
Look at this intelligent, beautiful, modestly dressed woman absolutely smashing her subject out of the park. This is the culture we need to be fighting for. This is what is being ripped from our grasp in the West, everyone. In the words of a recently crowned individual, fight, fight, fight.
Chronically Wild wrote,
It would be nice if the Australian gubble was genuine. Unfortunately, many can see it's about introducing digital ID and social credits. If they were serious, they would ban online porn to kids, since an adult can clearly see that is an issue, but that does not support the agenda.
At 1111 wrote,
Having worked in the U.S. Early Start program with some of the most behavioral toddlers in my county for 16 years, I came to realize the screens are a symptom of a larger pattern of parental neglect. What parents are actually doing to their kids is isolating them and depriving them of the development of the most basic social skills, including empathy. I worked with toddlers who spent most of their days on handheld devices, who were silent. They didn't interact with humans or objects and couldn't tell the difference between them. They had reactive attachment disorder, the precursor to antisocial personality disorder. After age 3, humans cannot develop the ability to care about others. The way this will manifest in each child will vary, including development delays. We are raising a generation of sociopaths. The only reason parents do this to their kids is to avoid the important task of raising their own kids. Kids need connection to develop normally. Isolation in early childhood damages a kid for life. For schools, tech is cheaper than humans. Teachers need to teach their kids. Parents need to love their kids.
Tenethums 1 wrote,
It's a necessary evil that will literally allow us to reach the stars. Kind of like nuclear power being a necessary evil for energy efficiency. These breakthroughs in science and tech typically are invented for the wrong reasons, or with very little thought to their effects beyond capitalism. However, when we're all on multi-generational ships, heading for the nearest Earth-like planet, we'll need this kind of tech to stream shows, music, games, and books from the ship's digital library, as taking thousands of those things in hard copy format will not be conducive. Are these things rewiring our brains? Absolutely. Are they changing society? Absolutely. But these changes convenience, isolation, energy resource efficiency, etc., will be needed in the hundreds of years to come.
At Dave Pimpedit 4309 wrote,
Why not show children what life used to be like? Playing out, making friends, solving problems, the list goes on. Turn back the clock, things were better. The UK was a lot safer place to live. And get labor out ASAP.
At Alexicanes wrote,
This is an alarming reality before which we need to take a stand as parents and educators. Spending time reading stories at night or throughout the day, letting our children make up their own stories, drawing and doodling, touching and playing with books at a very young age, even letting boredom kick in. I was the first deal breaker for schools. Whenever they advertise 100% tech-friendly, I am still a bit hesitant about robotics, yet learning that my 6-year-old daughter remembers events from when she was 1 is an encouraging reality that I try to harness and foster. There is still hope. AI is not the answer, to my opinion.
At Eclipse Strike 1564 wrote,
Please do not criticize me on this. I do not agree. Let me explain. She said that she would have bombed education if she had a device. Most successful dropshippers grew up with devices. I also do not agree with only 1 hour on devices used specifically for education, like school laptops.
As Suzanne Manley 6401 wrote,
I grew up in the 80s. I had 4 siblings. Our favorite things to do were going on bike rides together, building a den, reading books, drawing, playing board games. We'd even play dress up with old curtains and clothes. We out plays on in the living room and would play in the garden for hours. My daughter is 7. She still does all of these things, but there are days where I admit there is too much screen time. I'm lucky that she loves to read raw books and drawn on paper and has a vivid imagination for commodation play. I was sad that her school introduced iPads to assist learning. I feel school should be a place to switch off from technology and engage with the real world.
At Vorador Hilden 3410 wrote,
It's not tech in schools. It's how it's implemented at. I'm a visual learner. I need to see it. See how it works. With the Jarvis R glasses, in school, kids would excel. Or actual animations that creatively show how, let's say, an engine works. Learning history. See the landscape back then. Talk to George Washington or Da Vinci. Travel in space while you're learning about planets and such. That would have gotten me really interested and involved. So yeah, it's the way it's implemented that's the problem, not the tech itself. Stop blaming the wrong things. And honestly, it's the parents' fault. You are the main gatekeepers to the way kids see and interact with the world. Stop buying your 5-year-old a $1,500 phone. What did you think was going to happen? Be parents and stop letting screens raise your kids. Problem solved. Oh.
At Jesse 90-ish wrote,
I remember when I had to do some testing on a computer. I hated it. My head throbbed the entire time from the light emitting from the screen. I am very sensitive. And I could barely focus on the question. I also tend to reread a lot, and it was just absolutely exhausting. I cannot fathom how I would have fared now.
At Ashajidi wrote,
It's simple. If we care for the health and well-being of our children and society, mobile devices/screens, just like many other aspects of life that require maturity, will only be legally available from 16 upwards, preferably 18. If health and well-being is our concern. The decline in mental illness is also linked to exposure to endless alarms and the perpetual adult supervision/authority taking away personal growth and choice for our children and adults.
That the mouth wrote,
I hate that I think there should be an age limit on cell phones and social media, but the harm is too great. I see it at my kids' school. It's undeniable.
At Freethbirds 3578 wrote,
A generation ago, teachers resisted the introduction of tech into classrooms because they didn't know how to teach with it. Now, teachers will be aghast at the removal of screens because they won't know how to teach without it.
Thesaurus wrote,
After we discouraged parental intervention in the upbringing of children in the traditional way, we are now left with various behavioral deviations and the toxic exposure of high technology. And now we ask ourselves what went wrong. We then seek to introduce new laws and involve the state in a one-size-fits-all approach to fix things. I am afraid that this top-down approach inherently carries a totalitarian attitude and is bound to fail over time.
At Maisie Gracie 9928 wrote,
I think the issue isn't just screens, but poor parenting and a broken societal system. Why are we not taught these things in schools? Mindfulness, parenting, sustainability, balancing usage of digital equipment, and going out having fun. Most kids don't have an alternative, especially in this economy, who can afford to get the supplies for art. Who can afford to take their kids out on a day trip? Sometimes children and adults have no choice but to find escapism.
At Anti-Spammin 4795 wrote,
I started mentoring sexually abused children in 1994 before cell phones. It was clear that the parents I observed were much more concerned about themselves than their own children. I felt this responsibility to engage these child with every precious minute that we were together. This is an interesting presentation, but it completely misses the point that Western society is anti-family. Read the book Somebody Else's Children by John Hubner. If you're unable to read a book because you've had your own nose in your own cell phone for too many hours a day, go visit a poor country where family is more important than money and status.
At Phoenix Dreamer 7900 wrote,
Always realized that when PCs first went into schools and homes and started to be used for homework, that schools had and have a responsibility to teach children how to have proper long breaks and normal interaction away from phones and PCs, and the importance of it seeing as they had them in schools. It should have been part of the lessons taught. Parents should have letters sent home once a year about the importance of time away from phones and PC, especially as the last 2 generations of parents have also been brought up with all this tech. So many of them are oblivious to what they are doing to their children and themselves.
At Dragonadamic wrote,
I live in Sweden and my kids are given iPads on Fridays. I wish what she claimed about clicking out screens here is truth for our own Swedish school as well.
At Real Living Free wrote,
This woman and her speech are truly fantastic. Yes, but is it really telling it as it is? No, it is not telling you the full truth. It is either consciously being held back to give people hope and positive fantasies, or she the arc really has not yet grasped the totality of the damage. The damage has a LREADY been done, and now we desperately, urgently need to counteract, neutralize this desperate need for social media, and do what all these parents dread and avoid. They have to start a deeper relationship with their kids, be genuinely interested in their lives. Invest in creating live memories together, becoming the center of their world. The worst in all of this is that we have to tell parents about our own kids' horrible world, because the parents have REMAINED, thoughtlessly disinterested in their kids' lives and reality. We are fools if we try to smooth this out and make it to be a few accidents here and there. No, the example she made in the very beginning is excellent, but it is not an accident as it might seem for an outsider's perspective. That situation on the bus is their reality, get it? You and me who didn't grow up only with social media, we have an alternative. We view this to be reality, but for them, for our kids, our reality is not reality, and they are right. We live in different realities, and in their reality, there is no alternative. There are still plenty of young people and children who does live in a combined reality, and they won't fall prey for social media, ever. And maybe our answer for a counteract lays within understanding this. What was the difference in this kid's upbringing and the youngsters on the bus upbringing? Exactly, their upbringing. There is a huge amount of parents who did their own research and/or instinctively grasped that social media platforms could come to have too much power over their kids' life. Maybe they didn't explicitly or literally understand that it will have power over their child's mind and brain development and cause behavioral issues that would be difficult to correct. But since they had a sincere interest in being their child's parent and of being the #1 influencer in its life, they grasped it on some significant level and therefore taught their children the dangers of being influenced by content that you have no control over. They taught their children to have the same approach to social media as they themselves have. They spent time with their children and developed their creative side, playing instruments, painting, drawing, sewing, building, woodworking, literature, psychology, analysis, nature and plants, the care for animals and plants. They gave them necessary information and created in them a deep interest towards food and how and what a human body needs and doesn't really need. To counteract this damage that I repeat is already done. And we have to, because not only are these kids and youngsters creating damage to themselves, their total detachment from the physical and biological present going on within them and without them create ripple effects that touches us all extremely negatively. We must, absolutely must first accept its root issue. We cannot cure or counteract anything if we do it from the wrong standpoint and applying the same perception to solve the problem as we had when we created the problem. These kids and young people in my eyes are completely innocent, and the only counteract I see that is slightly possible is that parents will have to change their approach to them, but that change in approach will only come once they'll be wise enough to take this much more serious than before. Parents blame the kids for being too much on social media when they are the ones enabled this from the beginning, and they cannot change that now if this is what they are imagining. You take away someone's phone today, you have not understood anything of what I am trying to convey to you. Their phones and social media is their lifeline and reality. You might actually get killed or the least lethal consequence. You will be hated forever and will have closed the last line of communication between you and your child. The counteract will only be possible, and it will begin when parents assume their responsibility for this huge neglect and mistake. The only way to neutralize this false, but still imagined to be real, need for social media is for parents to create a deeper relationship with their kids, be genuinely interested in their lives. Stop judging them, and thus stop dividing them further from you. Invest in creating live memories together. Become the center of their world. See Wicking.
A Birtheater wrote.
That's the whole basis of the system that's been built. Smart technology to make people dumber, to not be creative or free-thinking. Smart enough to work, dumb enough to not question.
At Rob Ives 9155 wrote.
Absolutely correct. I used to operate on trains. All I observed was every person staring at screens, nil interaction whatsoever. We are now witnessing the collapse of society.
Estefan Patrico wrote.
Question: does this only include today's screen technology? Or are older technologies included? Ebooks, Palm Digital Assistants, DVD, VCD, MP3/4 players, Walkmans, cassette tape players, Nokia mobile phones, PCs, etc.
At Magic Booksio wrote.
Oh, how we sing of those 2 olive trees, whom the evil beast did slay, and of those whose works are told of old, where wizards stayed up late. And how we sing of him who gave his life, his oath to NetSec betrayed, who found the secret of VMQ in OpenBSD. For, alas, ere they cast his honest soul into that dungeon deep, he passed the key to the boy who grew into the wizard who refused to sleep. And now we sing to all the world. We live, laugh, love, chat, connect, and buy and sell for free. For with a single thrust of his mighty staff, the valley of Silicon and all its hosts were cast into the sea.
At the Hanyu Diver wrote.
They form their serial sense of self from tick-tock porn and deviant input from the screen that is worse than Chris Hansen's to catch a predator show.
At Aaron Murgatroyd 5810 wrote,
At 550, young people of today don't know how to communicate in person. The damage is already done, unfortunately, and parents of the next generation are too ignorant because of the phones to realize. Fortunately, they have banned mobile devices in schools in Australia in most states now. As a parent, I saw this issue 14 years ago before my daughter was born, and we did what we could to protect our daughter from it using parenting controls and ensuring she did not get a dedicated device until she was 13, a battle that was not easily fought or won due to all the other kids who did have devices early on. As a result, our daughter actually thanked me last year for ensuring she did not get as addicted to devices as her friends were, and even she could see how disruptive these devices are when overused.
At Danny Boy 2522, Q7D wrote,
Ultimately, responsibility lies with the parents. When I was young, we were outside playing as soon as possible after school. But we also spent hours a day and evening watching TV. In most of my neighborhood today, I see very few outside playing. Obviously, some is due to the lack of parents at home. Regarding the use of electronic classes, I took remote learning while at work, and it was great. I was able to take in the material at my own speed and could replay sections I needed to replay. I could contact the teacher with my questions. I was learning with a purpose and not distracted. I was really motivated, so that made a big difference. If I was present in a class, I'm sure I would not have been attuned to the teacher, as my mind can wander, and any movement of another student would take my attention. Same would be true of a student at home. Nothing else should be allowed that could take away their undivided attention, but that probably requires a parent. They also need to be motivated to learn, to exercise their brains. In grade school, many children are not entirely awake for the teaching sessions and may miss a day or two due to illness. It is very hard to catch up. In addition, some teachers are not effective, others are terrific. Maybe all students could hear the terrific teachers, even if they are pre-recorded or perhaps over the air, and the other teachers could spend more time one-on-one with each student. Once behind, it is very difficult to catch up. There is no replay, and many cannot take advantage of the few tutors provided. Controlling access to social media should be separated from the education experience. Each parent should closely monitor their children's online activity. It shouldn't be easy to access otherwise. If it exists, you will not be able to block them if they have their own electronic devices.
At ApeApe06 wrote,
As a punishment, my dad one time had me read a Roosevelt biography and write an essay on it. He was amused and not impressed at the same time. It was middle school. And don't forget the other side of those billionaire L's you quote. Bill Gates in Africa. Look it up. He's willing to use the tech to his advantage, but says it's unhealthy?
Actions speak louder than words, and we should always question everyone, no matter their supposed education and experience on the subject.
At Kresimers 2720 wrote,
Don't blame technology. It's the content that is to blame. If the content was quality, then people would spend less time. But instead, the content is designed in such a way to be empty of substance, yet creates an addiction and need for more. That was designed by thousands of scientists that were paid by Meta and alike to create such a hypnosis content. Instead of pushing history documentaries and foreign language, they push funny faces with cat ears. This is the thing. It's a conspiracy to push hypnosis content instead of quality. Don't ban the knife because someone stabbed someone. Millions of others use it to put butter on bread and feed themselves.
A small faucet wrote,
I use a PC and a tablet. But this is why I will never own an iPhone or a cell phone. To not look like a total kook more than usual out in public.
A Grimson Force 7504 wrote,
Not sure what the big deal is. Just means they are easy to manipulate. Plus, as long as they don't bother me, give them the phone. Just give them headphones.
At Raymond Jackson 6069 wrote,
She's so amazing in show, just how amazing women can be. Though there are hazards with the new technology, any new technology, progress marches on, and we are usually behind the curve. One of the perils of the advent of the automobile was that people were getting run over. Like all the time. She points out the hazards and proposes solutions. But those solutions can't be going back to the horse and buggy, but rather to put in the necessary guardrails, safeguards, and procedures to get maximum benefit.
At Lord of Frings P1D wrote,
I'm 39 years old and a proud father. I agree with this lady on every account. Sadly, though, it wouldn't be enough to just ban phones. That time has passed, and there would be some huge companies that make trillions off the sales of phones and contracts, who would sabotage any attempt to ban them. The culture surrounding phones needs to change. I have seen adults change in front of my eyes when they can't get their mobile phone hit. Turn into little Hitlers. Kids also see what mummy and daddy have and want it too. On the whole, parents have become incredibly lazy and will do just about anything except talk to their kids. We need more men in the classrooms too, especially for little boys. We need to bring winning back, not participation prizes. Reward actual hard work rather than bad behavior. And I don't even want to get into the religious side of things or the teachings of LGBT. Marriage and the nuclear family need to be celebrated.
At Max_955 wrote,
This is LAZYNESS and neglect by parents. It happened to us when we were young. Put babies in front of televisions, and they will be quiet. But before TVs were big and needed an electric cord to function. Also, the content has changed for the worst. There were good TV shows or cartoons. Now it's mostly YouTube Kids or similar with content without a story, without a narrative. Characters that do stuff without any sort of sense. That don't engage into any sort of thinking. Just content consumption for making views on the platform. I'm watching and observing it day by day with my nephew. Can't do anything about it. I'm sure psychologists, optometrists, fitness gurus, plastic surgeons of the future generation will be awfully rich, more than in the past.
A Gaskinmoo 79 wrote,
My kids have to earn their screen time, and then it's an hour max. Unless we are watching a movie. They will get the whole movie runtime. But then again, mine love to read and play.
At Lucy Thomas Hardy Lover QX6TS wrote,
And a maths GCSE is at the very least half done on a calculator. What is the point? I would have been expelled if I'd taken a calculator into an exam room. No wonder young adults cannot perform a simple addition.
At Paterk 4626 wrote,
And our older generation complain about the youth being soft and why are there so many mental health issues these days. We created this nightmare for them. Us oldies have no idea of the mental implications of tech from a young age. Also the side effects of this with social media. These kids and teens have to deal with situations we can't even imagine. We used to make mistakes back in the day, it would be forgotten. Nowadays, a kid makes a mistake and it's plastered all over media forever.
Etnoragaphia wrote,
In a few months, I'm moving to Brazil for the sole reason to ensure my children, if I ever have them, will go to a Catholic school where screen time is non-existent. And though I've never been pious, it has become my belief that we're long past half measures. Here in the Netherlands, laptops are mandatory in school, and a constant internet connection is needed, mostly through the use of smartphones when they turn 12. For grades, their roster, canceled classes, and anything else. It's actually the school that pressures children into owning smartphones and the parents' consent. Of all the children in my family, 11 in total, the consequences of smartphones have been extremely dire. Not just because of the reasons mentioned here, but also because of how social media has influenced their expectations in life. Nothing is good enough. Money is spent before they earn it. They are always chasing the next material item, travel destination, or hype. The information they gather online becomes intertwined with reality, incapable of making a separation between the two. This creates, it seems, an extremely tribal society where people have an opinion about everything without the actual knowledge, facts, experience, and nuance to back it up. They no longer try to look at situations from multiple angles, and they are incapable of having normal, civilized discussions. Quite frankly, there is no discourse anymore. I apologize for going on about this. I guess you could call it my life's mission, or one of them, to ensure these events will not repeat themselves for another generation. Last example. My aunt is a psychologist specialized in treating people with severe addiction. Yet, as I'm sure you can already guess, she clashes daily with her own teenage daughter, who, in her own words, is impossible. Incapable of steering towards any port that she deems profitable, she has limited social interactions, is not capable of talking normally or having a conversation, is always looking at the next thing she wants to buy, has no interests in anything besides her phone, and this is not an exaggeration, and perhaps worst of all, doesn't have a father, they're divorced, who corrects her. She is perhaps the prime example of that common phrase, a child who has never been told no. And now, when it becomes essential to say no, she refuses to listen. Out of the 11 children, 7 grew up here in the Netherlands, and only one of them seems to be doing good. With a job she likes, a nice boyfriend, and his family takes good care of her as well. Or so I'm told. As you might imagine, she's also the eldest, 22 now, who had limited screen time when she was younger. Best of luck to everyone. I mean it.
At RML 695 wrote,
I want the human experience to remain. As to too much tech. As someone who has a disability and grew up in a mainstream classroom, for example, amongst my peers who did not have disabilities, I did my share of both handwriting and typing. I found typing to be faster, but the laptop I got from my school was very basic, and I do mean very basic. It ran something similar to DOS, and while it did have an onboard modem, that modem was never used. I had dial-up internet at home, and didn't even get to use a true full-function laptop in the classroom compared to the basic one I had in middle school until my junior year in high school. Those computers were so locked down that I didn't even get the assistive software I needed on the Mac until OS X. These days I can see a tablet as a good tool, but it must be e-controlled. Filtered internet, highly locked down, no app store, etc. This way a student with differentiating needs can get what they need without being overwhelmed by screen time. Set the tablet to shut off at the end of the school day, for example. So it's a balancing act.
At GC 6497 wrote,
Noon, however, my children, 6 and 8, had 0-minute screen when driving from London to Italy, Tuscany, twice. Check out how many hours my children had 0-minute screen time while eating, shopping, and traveling on buses. If I can do it, everyone can do it.
Passcode Advance wrote,
Even as a Gen Z, I always was horrified and frustrated by the obsession with giving every younger kid and others these destructive technologies like shorts, social media, and so many ways to be cyberbullied that is fueled by the rotten disease, capitalism, and brain rot. It felt horrible that so many parents neglect their children and keep throwing them at phones. Why do they do this? My own generation is broken, and the new generation is broken, and even the previous generations are addicted to these capitalist, brain-rotting consumerist beasts of destruction.
Scient wrote,
Our increasing reliance on AI to do research, to summarize, and to write for us will cause similar damage to what's described by this brilliant lady. My employer is pushing for it, not realizing that it will hinder new recruits from learning how to properly organize their thoughts and ideas.
Adexunatavires wrote,
Children, and they don't want to work when they reach their teenage working age. They don't want to work at work when they are young adults. When you are working or at work, you ought have to place your cellular ohonies into lockers. Technology, especially the Facebook virtual reality headsets, do not have child-only rooms. There are adults interacting with children in private rooms doing, probably illicit things. I know because I caught kid one such virtual room.
At Randy Pullman 1155 wrote,
Who is she kidding? We have issues, but AI-preferred content based on viewing history isn't as alarming as the realization that voting doesn't keep US safe, e.g. Baltimore and DC and Maryland.
At Mikey and Nico wrote,
30 years of this nonsense, but we're finally figuring it out. Technology is just a tool, a battering ram if used correctly, but a blindfold as much as any other when there is a fetish built and encouraged around it. Ira Shore, Jane Healy, Henry Levin saw all this coming decades ago. I'm glad we're finally figuring this out.
Chris Martinable wrote,
I completely agree with this lady. The deep state knew exactly what it was doing when they invented these toys on the pretext that they would open up a world of knowledge. However, this is not what they are being used for. They are a tool to divert attention away from what the WEF are planning to do with a new world order. When children are using these brainwashing tools, they don't respond to communication. They slowly become neutralized and passive. They are being bombarded with trash. Art and creativity is now officially dead. They don't need to think or do anything because AI will do it all for them. Knowledge is being removed from the internet at an alarming rate, just like book burning. They don't want critical thinkers. They want placid, agreeable farm animals that will do exactly as they are told. AI is the final nail in the coffin.
At Eve 2915 wrote,
The computer technology is being used deliberately to suppress, subjugate, and manipulate all people regardless of age. The aim is to create a cashless society where every aspect of our lives is controlled and manipulated by the state, all our freedoms and rights destroyed, and the people seen as nothing more than commodities controlled by the multinationals. These agendas are already in operation in China, and the technology to do this was built and supplied by the US and British governments. They are by stealth and deception introducing all these agendas into Western society. Stop using social media, stop using cashless payments and credit cards. Stop using the banks and remove your cash from them. If we don't do this now, all future generations and us will live in slavery.
Toiletos wrote,
Only low IQ individuals fall for this propaganda. It is clearly propaganda due to the use of fantastic and positive words to anything analog and negative about anything digital. You should not blame everything bad on screens, as the problem is not the different mediums, but the lack of follow-up by parents. My 7-year-old has been a PC gamer since he was 2. He is the happiest and certainly one of the smartest in his class if we can judge by math, reading and writing comprehension. He is popular and was the only one who properly welcomed and took good care of a classmate who arrived later due to changing schools. He's socially smart and caring. I'm a computer programmer, esports and IT expert, so I know it's easier for me to follow up and explain stuff than the average person. So I'm not telling others that it would be right for them to allow their kids to spend as much time gaming as my son. I just want to put it out there that it's more about the capabilities of you as a parent than screen time or not. Oh, and BTW, I still agree social media is toxic, and I'm not giving him a phone anytime soon. This whole talk is so one-sided that it can only be meant for imbeciles. Sorry for my bad English. It's not my primary language.
A Canagetta Channel wrote,
This place exists to stifle the First Amendment, a God-given, constitutionally protected right. It's the little safe space for people to escape public discourse because there is no more private. The private is a threat to the community. This is the digital bubble where the best hiding place is behind a keyboard, where you can secretly report your neighbor. It is this safe hive mind where all think safely and exactly the same because it reports any dissenters. People that think freely are to be reported to the authority/masters because they are dangerous to mental stability, indoctrination. Truth is a dangerous weapon, and we can't have weapons here. They're not safe. Sincerely, Good Citizen.
A Waxter wrote,
I've been saying this since Facebook was only open to university students. The sad reality is most people will not be able to escape the addiction of technology, and it will only get worse with AI.
At White Evo 6 wrote,
Clearly, she didn't read the Australian disinformation bill here as she said bravo to us, whilst also saying the laws should protect children and not affect adults. Our government's law would force ALL Australians to have a digital ID effectively tracking every single Australian's movements and posts online so we can have police knocking it outdoors for upsetting some snowflake with free speech. The government does not decide what my kids can and cannot access. I do. I'm the parent. Don't be so eager to hand over parental rights to governments. You'll be sorry. They will restrict kids accessing educational content online. Physical books cost parents more. Who's planting all the extra trees when we stop using tablets and need to start print millions of more books? This law in Australia has nothing to do with protecting children. It's to create a 1984 in Australia. Free speech and thought made illegal unless it fits the predetermined guidelines of the Australia government. Please do not follow us. In fact, boycott anything Australian until our government stops trying to create an Australian version of China acting like the CCP to stop independent thought and free speech. Australia is under threat from these laws. We are not to be copied.
At B4103 wrote,
I was educated well before screens and totally agree with your compelling argument. I have to say jokingly that for me, technology could have stopped after electronic calculators were invented. I could never do long division, LOL.
Papa Wisdom wrote,
It is very similar to being a drug addict, with one big difference: it's way more addictive. Because of that, there's no reversing it. And in my opinion, it will ultimately only go in a bad direction that will get worse over time. We're already at the point of no return.
The Big 2K wrote,
Smartphones should be banned for both children and adults. It's enough having the internet on your computer. But to have apps 24/7 is destructive and disruptive, just like the tech companies behind them. Bring back normality, at least when you're free of the computer.
Ed S. Silver 25 wrote,
Blaming the school system is illogical, since those who abhor the system are a product of the system. Parenting is the key. But we all know 40% plus of our households only have sperm donors. Women left alone to do all.
Kokathesia wrote,
Ending a man's world and building, at least, sex equity politically, economically, and culturally would boost human safety and health. Femalkind seems more likely as a group to factor the safety and health of people and planet in her decision-making.
Ed Nicolaskally 501 wrote,
UK has failed as a country. Great Britain was. And they failed God and his children. England and all responsible for this, you truly are accountable.
At Rangersman 55 wrote,
The lessons in this video are very important. There is a place for technology, but not at the expense of family and giving them undivided attention and care and love.
At Neologian 1783 wrote,
Here's the terrifying thing. We all know it's true. Ourselves, our schools, our politicians, our tech leaders. All of us. Yeah. And we have absolutely no intention of doing anything about it, other than watch it get worse.
At Useto have username I liked wrote,
As a retired teacher who has never owned a smartphone, I worry about the future of the human brain. Machines are getting smarter, while we humans are getting weaker. Why?
At Terrence Mason wrote,
I've always said it'd take the advice of a bricklayer before any computer whiz technical geek wearing glasses. Bad genes, weak muns, weak bodies.
At DJ SV7XF wrote,
Substituting screens for books seems very bad for the nervous system. Books require greater concentration and imagination and teach patience. For these reasons, books are Zen-like. Books can require constant adjustments as you go from left page to right page, turn pages, lift and put down, and restrain pages, especially for thick books. In comparison, screens require more limited movement and can cause dopamine fatigue. There's also the movement away from handwritten work. Now it's type or cut and paste. So, limited brain work there. In 1972, the calculator removed exercise of mathematical skills and memorizing formulas. It was a mistake in education to allow them in the classroom. So it is with computers.
At Jake JD7BD wrote,
Let's not forget that it's not just kids. It's adults, and the elderly too. I really noticed this in Japan when I was working there for 2 weeks and riding the train for 2 hours a day. 90% of people of all ages staring at their phones. I'm not saying I'm special. I might have been on my phone too, but I didn't have a good travel data plan, so my phone was pretty much useless. But that allowed me the opportunity to just observe and look around at the world.
God wrote,
Yes, everyone needs to stick your blinders back on. Ignore all the horrors in the world and follow the narratives without being elite to have free critical thinking.
At Mr. Marley 36 wrote,
Seriously, very concerned about the screen addiction that is. In this generation, very concerned about my grandchildren. The discussion here needs to take action. No phones in school, more protection, blocking, the program adolescence. Says it all.
And Norik DJ wrote,
One of the reasons that prevents children from going out to play is the growing insecurity in our cities, mainly due to illegal immigration, which our governments choose not to control. Our cities are no longer what they were 20 or 30 years ago.
At Fernando Alfonica 7476 wrote,
I don't think we need to get rid of tech, but a blended learning approach has proven to be very successful. If used correctly, tech saves time, aids with revision and intervention, while giving the teacher time to facilitate and focus on learners. There is a huge difference between a productivity tool and an educational tool in EdTech.
At Elwood 212 wrote,
Thank you to ARC for spreading the message of what it is to be human and to save humanity. Sadly, classrooms are already plagued with surveillance devices that are recording every movement and sound apart from the cameras already in classrooms in the form of their own phones and smoke alarms. To alter Klaus Schwab's infamous line, by 2030 you will own nothing, know nothing, and won't know what happiness is.
At Annette Elliott 1494 wrote,
I'm so thankful my kids grew up in the 80s and 90s. Before social media, thought it breaks my heart to see a family eating out, mom and kids on phones, dad by himself staring at who knows what. Really sad.
At Alex Vignolo 7798 wrote,
She doesn't actually care about the kids. She just wants to defund the schools so it gets kicked back to the states, which will teach prayer as a problem-solving method. Senseless.
At Theffersteverfax wrote,
Sorry, but you're wrong. Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg both said tech helps learning, and it should be an integral part of my life. Never mind data, statistics, and evidence, or what we can see with our own eyes. Let's not focus on the negatives. Let's think about friendship, making real connections with people who are also online playing games 12 hours a day, making AI pictures of people eating spaghetti and dubbing crap YouTube videos with no facts in them. Then everything will be okay.
At Eliza J. wrote,
If our babies, as they grow, especially through the ugly duckling teen stage, if they have not been exposed to the normal average garden variety of people, and only been feed the perfect and the beautiful, how can we not then understand their struggle, their mental anguish that they are not perfect nor anywhere near the airbrushed beauty that they have been brainwashed to believe is normal? We are heading towards an unrealistic and unrealizable future where very few fit. Is that what we are calling progress?
At Aaron Liao M7 you wrote,
I think it's very true what she said when you look at it from Gen X or Millennials' point of view. However, I'd like to also point out a counter-argument by swapping the ideas of tech in education with pencils and pen, and changing the pencils and pen in her examples to hammer and nails. A society progresses to learn regardless of circumstances, but health is the impact we can never ignore.
Scott 1015 wrote,
I'm not even a parent, but I think this woman is spot on, just from my outsider's viewpoint. And she was absolutely correct in her assessment of her first story about the two on the bus. Such a sad world we live in, and it's just getting worse.
At Aurelia Brown 4317 wrote,
Jesus Christ, how innocent are people that they can't see what's happening with people they love. I could see it in my kids, and I did something about it straight away. Or are people so used to talking about it, but not actually doing anything about it, that they've lost all sense of it?
At Mokopenapatine 4564 wrote,
Quesera, Sarah, whatever will be the future, not ours to see. They will not need our knowledge in there, a robotic automated future. They are happy with their nose in iPhone, as I was in fuckery.
At William Micula 8447 wrote,
Bravo, this is genuine. The only screens in a class should be for tech learning and or being able to record image or video in case of child harm. A way for them to record if abuse is being administered. Aside from that, I don't see a need for it. Nothing is more inspiring and beneficial to a child than an amazing human teacher.
At Bergs01 wrote,
Brilliant put across by Sophie, absorbing and electrifying factual how we are dumbing out children down. Thank you, Sophie, for an enlightening factual argument against tech in and out of schools for our kids.
At Vortzi wrote,
This talk seems to be barking up the wrong tree. So many of her points are countered pretty easily if you just scratch the surface. Social media and tech addiction is real, but the isolation it attempts to mitigate is what comes first.
Pederix wrote,
What have we done to ourselves too? The best thing for humanity would be if all the endless scrolling feeds and slot machines and Skinner boxes got outlawed worldwide.
At Scott Foster 3548 wrote,
No child ever should have a cell phone or be on a computer ever. They need old-fashioned hand basic book and writing skills. They can learn to use a computer in 2 weeks as adults. Their childhood can never be replaced. You have already ruined generations, FOOLS.
The 22 Bodak wrote,
I am a father of 2 beautiful little girls under 4 who are just about to embark on their school learning journeys. I am terrified for them. Borderline don't want them in the system. You're supposed to go to school and learn how to interact with our fellow human beings, being subject to adduction academically and socially. They need to experience everything from camaraderie to bullying. They need to learn how to communicate through speech and literature. It's vital for them to become healthy, rebellious teenagers and young adults when their hormones settle and they start transitioning into the people all the previous experiences have influenced. All previous generations worry about their young and the decline in education. My grandparents to my parents to me. It's common and we all know this because we had the time to sit with our grandparents and listen. And all the younger generations will fight this and make some excuses why their generation is better than that before them. But this jump into what the technocrats' vision for education should be is beyond all human reason. That is the only way I can describe it. It is inhuman. It is the first time in history. I think all generations could agree that it is wrong and once again inhumane. Dumbed down brain-dead consumers most likely by design. Tech people tend to read quite a bit of sci-fi, and there's a lot of that in those writings, dumbed down populaces with very basic communication and literacy skills. Terrifying.
Jmicki wrote,
ON point 1000%. Even though at this point, it's like peeing against the wind. Analog days are over. It's only going to get worse, unfortunately, and let's cut the Christian heritage crap out. Can't go that analog. It's 2025. You are an intelligent person who cannot possibly believe in Jesus flying out of a cave fairy tale.
At Anger Pigeon 1714 wrote,
The biggest damage of tech, however, is kids not seeking entertainment in reading books, the childhood classics and universal classics, and not just read but be free of distractions while doing it. Who hasn't read at least one Jules Verne, at least an adventure book, at least a sci-fi book, is mentally challenged now. School is not only irrelevant but detrimental in creating human beings. Besides teaching you how to read, school was crap before tech. It was designed to create idiots, and there's a recorded history about it, and that's why so much useless drivel is taught, but not your rights, not how to litigate and prosecute the crimes of the government, not politics, not freedom, not how to think for yourself, and it lies that it has relevance after graduating. The corrupt get ahead, the nepotists the criminals. Government oligarchy and their police thugs disarm you, protect criminals and guarantee crime. School creates useful idiots tools. I can create an optimal school plan to make what would be by today's standards geniuses. But would I be allowed? Of course not. I am in fact denouncing the criminal activity of the government, and it doesn't convict itself. Not in one's instance. That's the reality. You're an animal in an animal farm. They, the peasants, breed you like cattle. That's why the immigrants, they're stupider, more docile, easier to govern. White folk think they got rights. Immigrants are cowardly idiots who fled their country instead of fighting for justice. And there you have it. A lack of morals means being dishonest to oneself, and low self-esteem means being easy to manipulate. The animals with rights will be phased out in time by selective breeding and imports, while the local breeding will be neutered with woke propaganda, homosexuality, in a freedom regime of poverty and prostitutes, meaning no children. Islam breeds whether they're like it or not. I've seen it. It's a commandment for that breed of cattle, as is inculture and obedience. And they're hypocrites, of course, like everyone else. The Middle East situation is not random. It's the result of their inculture. School as an institution has the same agenda. Let me make you a believer. You think a manager would hire anyone intelligent enough to replace him? Of course not, that's the whole point. Bosses hire stupid managers thinking the same. So who ends up being employed at the bottom, of course, is going to be an incompetent moron, as we actually often find in reality. P.S. I am smart now because I've took as much time to undo the school damage as it took to do it. And of course the damage cannot be completely undone since they get you institutionalized from childhood by terrorizing your parents to give you up, while they, the money oligarchy, can pay for private tutoring, private schools, superior studies, and the accommodation that's needed, while the formal education for the cattle, the poor, is as decrepit as it can be, as poorly funded as it can be, and as insane as it can be, to wipe out the masses' capacity to govern themselves and be able to do anything but the lowest chores which they, the oligarchy, thus free themselves and their progeny.
At Paul Jackson 8282 wrote,
This all sounds great, but consider that about 98% of all school teachers are essentially Marxist conditioning agents, and maybe any time a student is not subject to them ain't so bad. There are a lot more problems in education than modern tech.
Chaliseb 5 wrote,
A teacher's response, 25 ers. In the service. Yes, yes, and yes. Screens do more harm than good. Aside from English, I teach PE. The coordinative and fine, motor skills of a lot of adolescent students are below average. The decline me and my colleagues had to witness in the past decade is dramatic. Mental abnormalities are another big factor for concern. Hardly anybody seems to be normal anymore. No wonder when their eyes are glued to the phone screen over large sections of the day. The amount of energy this sucks out of their brain, consuming garbage for hours and hours on end.